hackers to look at Bitcoin with them, because I wasn't a vulnerability researcher, but I just knew a lot of different technologies. So they wanted my perspective.
Okay. So you mean nowadays you would be what would be considered like when the hackers are good at their jobs, and if a new token wants to hit the market, they want to make sure it's hacker proof. So is that what you're talking about, that you were invited to help test the system to make sure everything was okay? Is that what you mean? No.
Almost. I worked for a company that was into cyber warfare and corporate espionage. But I was doing most of the things where I would connect a bunch of their technologies. So these were people that, looking back, I would not be part of a company like this again. This was about 16 years ago. So when they heard of Bitcoin through their channels, they were looking to break it and to sell ways to break it to other people. That's what this company and this
Okay.
business did. And that was my first introduction. And I didn't understand it too much. I saw the code, I looked through the code, but I thought to myself, why would this be a big deal? Why not just use PayPal? Why not just use the current solutions? I couldn't see the future Bitcoin was
Right.
creating, and I really couldn't see why this company wanted me to look at this with the vulnerability researchers. And one of those hacker guys, they were not ethical hackers. They were very unethical hackers. So I'm not involved in that kind of business anymore. But one of them said to me, "Oh, like, why not use PayPal?" Okay. I mean, he could have laughed at me and stuff, but of course he didn't. He knew what was up. And he told me, he said, "Well, you see, one of the weakest links in any country is the currency.
Yes.
And Bitcoin is proposing to be another currency. So it's extremely valuable to learn how to basically undermine that currency." And apparently that's a big attack when it comes
Okay.
to like cyber warfare and stuff, and even corporate warfare.
Right. So, what can you tell our listeners? What exactly is cryptocurrency? Yes, you're talking about the codes. And for the people on Liquid Green Health Show, we did have one session on crypto previously. But as a review, I'm sure everybody wants to know. How do you explain as briefly as possible what is crypto?
Well, I'm glad you asked me, because I've noticed a lot of people overcomplicate this, and I probably do too. Well, cryptocurrency, it's called that just because of cryptography. Like, we've heard a lot about cryptography, where cryptography makes our internet safer and stuff. Well, Bitcoin makes a lot of sense when you realize that it's it's software, and it has one job. And is to that one job is to be like a bank where people can transact with one another. That's its job. So the
Yes.
software has all the functionality of opening an account or having an account and receiving Bitcoin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's completely run by the software. So it's a company that is completely run by software. Sort of like today, you hear about companies that are using AI a lot more, and AI is starting to run companies. But the difference is Bitcoin needs human beings to help it operate. It
Yes.
needs the infrastructure, the computers. So this is why you'll hear about Bitcoin being a whole money thing. And then you'll hear about Bitcoin miners, people who are giving their mining power to the Bitcoin ecosystem. So Bitcoin is just a company that is like the Federal Reserve. It prints money and it allows people to use it and transact it. And it needs people to do work for it. So it
Right.
incentivizes them with this new currency to do work for them.
Okay.
Does that make
Proof
sense?
of work. Yes,
If you have any
I do
questions about
understand.
that, I'm
Yeah.
happy to answer that.
Yeah. This, you know what, Robert, this show goes so quickly. We always say 1 hour here is 22 minutes. There was a show called that, right? So thanks for that exclamation explanation. And what when I learned about Bitcoin, the experts say Bitcoin is it's the sun, and every other crypto around it are the satellites. Bitcoin is the big boy, correct? It was the first. It is limited in its resources. There will only be 21 million coins. And today we invited you to tell us about another token that is going to, folks, first of all, we have to do, what do we need to do? A disclaimer.
I really can't hear what's happening,
No?
so I'm going to have to go on what you're saying.
Okay.
But what we should have done prior to getting into the show is do a disclaimer. We are heavily involved in cryptocurrency,
Yes.
right? In crypto. So we have to let people know that
We're
this is
also
one of the
involved
things that
with
we are, Yeah.
Genius AI.
that he's going to be talking about.
But this show is not about, it's not to, it's not an investment show. This is just providing information,
Yeah.
and as Frederick likes to call it, edutainment.
Yeah.
All right. But it's something I believe that if folks learn about it, that's why we're here, Robert. We want to tell people of something, anything we hear about, whether it's in the health field or in the financial world. If we hear about it and we think it's good and that it could be a benefit to humanity, we want to be able to discuss it. And that's why you're here. So how does Genius AI and the Genie token, how is that going to stand up towards a big one like, Bitcoin or Ethereum or XRP or any of those? Sorry for the really long question.
That's okay. Sorry, I'm eating this fruit in front of you guys. I figured it was a health show. I may as well eat some healthy fruit during it.
What are you having? Papaya?
I have papaya and
Watermelon.
pineapple that's actually really ripe.
Okay, pretty healthy.
Well, to answer your question, you got to remember that Bitcoin proposed, and I love that metaphor, like Bitcoin is the sun and all these other cryptocurrencies are the satellites around it. You got to get down to the job, because if there's a tool called Bitcoin, it's not going to make sense if it's not solving a problem for you.
Utility, yes.
Yeah. And in Bitcoin, Bitcoin solves a problem for Bitcoin solves a problem that Bitcoin solves a problem that not every person has. Like people who are ultra insanely wealthy, it solves problems for them. It solves problems for nations storing their value and not wanting to be so chained around the neck by the US dollar. So a lot of people don't have these problems. They don't have problems with their bank account getting frozen. But a lot of people do. When I one of the first things I heard as I was starting to come into much more wealth, and then being around people who, kind of allowed me to be around them more. I guess they saw me as like, okay, Robert's got some wealth too. One of the things that I heard that made a lot of sense was, man, it's like when you have a lot of money, it's even harder to use it. The bank constantly wants information, or you want to pay somebody in, like let's say it's France, or you're paying a lot of money to one place, and the bank is getting in the way constantly, wondering what you're doing about that. Like once a bank asked me to sign a paper. They didn't want to lose my business, but they also wanted me to write a paper stating that I wasn't supplying arms to some country that I never heard of before. And I was like, what?
Okay.
So Bitcoin solves problems for a lot of very wealthy people, but that's where Bitcoin's value comes from, and people are seeing it gain so much value, and they're like, whoa, is this an investment? Because I kind of want to invest in that. Because Bitcoin has a lot of untapped value. And I just wanted to share that because it's important to know
Yeah.
like why the tool, why people care about it. Because
Sort of.
Genius's AI is different. Genius isn't solving a money problem that very few of us have. Genius is proposing to solve the entire problem of the economy.
Great.
That's the best I can say it
Right.
in a short word.
And yes, and what I understand from having read the white paper and trying to dissect the white paper with, you know, some of the people who are invested in Genius, is that you have something called a collateral vault, which is managed by AI and which is going to actually solve one of the biggest problems in the world and in investment. Because let's say you're in a bear market and the market crashes and people sell, the coin falls, and a lot of people can lose money. This, with the Genius system, has been engineered so that when people sell, it's actually a benefit to those who stay because of how mining is different in Genius. Could you explain that to our listeners?
Sure. You see, I've noticed, and I didn't know this when Genius was launched. I didn't know it a year later. After a couple of years of watching Genius and talking with the designers and having my own feedback with that and, you know, helping them solve things too, I realized something that most people don't see when it comes to the economy. Ultimately, how the economy works is when you buy something, the value goes up in price.
Yes.
And when you sell something, the value drops in price.
Yes.
And people will say, oh, this is supply and demand. If, you know, if there's a lot of demand and little supply, the value goes up. But that's completely not true in the system we have. The economy today is basically markets. New York Stock Exchange, Toronto Stock Exchange. Fred, I'm so sorry you can't hear this.
I know. Just, do you want me to take this off and
No,
just
it's okay.
try?
Go
A
ahead.
gentleman.
Okay.
So our economy today is just markets, right? Lots of stock markets, like Toronto stock market, crypto markets, just buying and selling, right? And there's a problem. And that problem is the fact that when people buy, the price goes up, and when people sell, the price goes down. But why is that a
Right.
problem? Like anytime somebody is trading with one another, both parties are benefiting.
Yes.
Like if I'm buying Bitcoin, somebody's also selling it at the same time.
Correct.
But with how the system works, the system uses people buying and selling to figure out a price. It's just people bidding with one another. You know, like let's say, Janet, I know you can't hear. Oh, you can hear me. Cool.
Frederick, can you
Let's
hear
say,
me?
Janet, that
Okay.
you,
Fred is on.
let's say that you want to sell me one Bitcoin.
Yes.
Bitcoin today is like 75,000 US dollars.
Yeah, it's going up.
And you want to sell me that Bitcoin pretty quick. You're like, hey, Robert, can you buy this? I got one full Bitcoin. Will you buy it for me? I want to sell it quick. And then I go, you know what? I'll give you 65 grand right now. And then you say, well, dang it, Robert. You're a real jerk, but okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. And at a
Here's one
loss,
Bitcoin,
right? Yeah.
and I give you $65,000. Magically, the price of Bitcoin is $65,000 with how markets work today, just because you gave into my demand.
And then I go, you know what? I'll give you 60 bucks.
Is Bitcoin really worth less because you gave into my demand? No. That's how markets work today. And it's very flawed. But in the Genius is proposing a completely different system where buying and selling doesn't move the price itself. The price depends on something other than people desperately selling. or people buying because they have a fear of missing out.
Right.
That's the erratic, chaotic, manipulated economy that we live in today. Do we really want the value of our home, the value of our Bitcoin, the value of our cash, even? Do we really want that? Or the value of our cars? Do we really want the value of everything we have to be so chaotic just because regulators are saying this is how this will work, and it's valued less because somebody gave into someone else's demand? It's valued more because somebody gave into someone else's demand, which nobody's going to complain about that part. It's not a accurate way to value something. So Genius is coming in to say, look, we can do economy differently. We don't have to do economy in a way where when you buy, the value of something rises, and when you sell, the value of something drops. So we don't have to do it that way.
Okay.
And furthermore, we can do things differently. That's what Genius says. And Genius is only possible today. Genius wasn't possible 40 years ago. It wasn't possible 20 years ago. It needed the internet to be possible. It needed cryptocurrencies to be possible. It needed tokenization to be possible. It needed these bizarre smart contracts that we hear of to be possible. And with all of those new technologies stacking up and the world using them, Genius was able to put those technologies together to make something amazing. An economy for the new world that we've all created.
You know, Robert, you always talk about attention and intention, right? In terms of people, how do we determine value? Like, value is only determined by the intention of people. You say my house is worth $1 million. You perceive the value, and so you pay me 105 to get it, right? How does this translate in Genie? How does intention and attention? Because I know you talk about that all the time. Could you again explain to our listeners how that is important in the Genie ecosystem?
Mm-hmm.
You're making my mouth water for some of that papaya.
Sorry, guys. Well, let's go back to people saying, oh, the economy is just supply and demand. If you ever drill somebody on that to describe it, they'll describe it. It takes a lot of words. Genius is saying that value isn't supply versus demand. Genius is saying, think about it. What's valuable to you in your life? I was there early enough in a Slack chat room. There was a Slack chat room where people would talk about the economics of different new cryptocurrencies and tokens. And they would talk about this because we all were like looking for gems together. We were all looking for great crypto investments. And this is where the design of Genius was born, in this Slack chat room. The question was posed like, hey, what is valuable to like everyone, right? Like, what thing is valuable to every single person on Earth?
Air.
Well, yes. It's like, well, the thing that's valuable is, you could say what you want. Well, not everybody wants the same thing. What you need to survive. People would say all these things. And that was about the time where I started realizing and learning, okay, I get it. Scarcity makes something valuable. I get it. Go on. But what I started to see was, oh, wait, that's a good question. What is universally valuable to everyone? And I just remember one day there was like a conversation going on in there. I was engaged in it as well, where it was going back and forth with like even people cussing each other out. All about what is uniquely valuable to all of us, because some people would say God, some people would be like, oh, God's not true.
Health,
Some people would say
money,
health, and they'd say,
family.
yeah. It just went everywhere.
Yeah.
And well, it boiled down to attention. I think that was the first one. that attention was the only thing in the universe that was actually scarce. Now, whether that's right or wrong, that was something that a lot of people were agreeing with. They're saying, yeah, attention. Duh, the internet is a attention economy.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that came up was intentions. Like, for example, someone you're married to or a company you work for, whatever it is, whatever relationships, you have intentions of working together. And that intention alone is valuable. Because, well, we can change our mind anytime.
Right.
So Genius ended up becoming a product of, now I realize it's like an economic solution, all these things. It ended up saying, you know what, value isn't supply versus demand. Value is attention versus intention.
So I get that, and I believe the folks that are currently who have purchased Genius, they're looking at it not just like one of these tokens where they hype it, it's pumped, and then a price is announced, there's a launch, and everybody who knew about it at the very beginning, the big investors pull out their money, like the Trump coin, for example, and then what happens? Rug pull. It's within days or within not too long a period, price falls, and a lot of people are left with not much of an investment, right? This has been engineered within the code for Genius so that it will not happen. The rug pull cannot happen, because what I've heard in the white paper is that the code, the keys or whatever it is to the code, once it has been set, not even the developers, people like whoever they are, I still don't know who the developers are. They're not as anonymous as Satoshi with Bitcoin, who has disappeared. Nobody really knows who he is. But you will not be able to do, like, the Genius
Pump and dump.
ecosystem will not be able to be tarnished or damaged in that way. And I believe that is why we are so excited to be a part of something where it's going to be legacy building for the future. It's going to be managed in a DAO that no one person, no one company, no Robert Genito, no other developers is going to own it. Explain why that is so important. Because the object of getting you on today is for people to know about something that we believe in, and our listeners have been with us for 4 years. We believe we've developed a trust with our audience, right, Frederick?
Yes.
At least they like you, right?
They love me.
They love you. They like me. No, I have my own people who love me, right? Right, Gary, you love me.
I do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know you love Fred too. But Robert,
But
help us.
hold it. Like I'm
Yes.
hearing stuff. My tech has been fixed.
Okay.
So I can jump in.
Nice.
Before hi Robert, nice to see you.
I know.
Before Robert-
Nice to hear me, probably.
Yes.
Yes. Know that before you can answer the question, and I think I know where you're going.
Yeah.
You mentioned something very important, the DAO.
Yeah.
If we can ask Robert to explain what the DAO is,
Yeah.
right, in terms of the Genie ecosystem, right?
Sure.
Could you elaborate on that?
Would you like me to elaborate on a DAO?
Yes.
It's a government, basically. But you see, this might not sound like I'm elaborating on it, but hear me out.
Well,
Go
give it
ahead.
your best shot.
There's a part I'd love to join in on because I think it's valuable. And I'd really like to give you all some value here. 100, maybe 120 years ago, Fred, how many times do you think your average person transacted every day 120 years ago?
in shells, and no, that's too people.
120
No,
years
no,
ago,
120
probably.
years
still
ago. How many times did people come together and transact? Your average person,
daily.
your average family man, family woman, every day. How many
Yeah,
times did
that
the
would have
average
Daily.
been
person like
a
barter something?
daily thing,
Yes.
several times a day.
Yeah.
Okay, so your average person like 5 times a day?
I would say at least 4.
I would say
At least
probably
4.
more.
Yeah.
4 to 6.
Well, and there's definitely some people where they don't even transact for a whole week, probably. They're
Yes.
just hanging out with their family and they're just like, doing some stuff on the farm. And then there's probably some people, in the economic district downtown who are transacting like, 10 times a day. And people were like, wow. Well, the point is today, right? Today, people transact so much, businesses transact so much more than they did 120 years ago
Seconds.
because they're able to. They have computers, they have
Technology.
lots of employees, they have lots of customers. So, what I'm getting at is today, people transact way more than they did 120 years ago. Plus, the population's a lot higher.
Mhm.
So, the number of transactions that are going on in the entire world is an insane number compared to what it was 120 years ago. And what you have on top of that is you have these banks and you have these, I guess you could say, other entities attempting to regulate all of these transactions to keep everyone safe and to keep things fair.
Hmm.
We have to be honest, that's probably a lot more impossible today than it was
Yes.
120 years ago.
Correct.
Definitely. Yeah.
And because you have people who manipulate markets. So you have, governments that have come up with laws and penalties for insider trading and things like that to keep it as fair as possible. To keep it as fair as possible because they know it's flawed.
Right.
So these new systems that are coming out and these new AIs, they're able to do all of the work human beings did without the human beings.
Right.
But the thing they don't know what to do, right? Like the thing Bitcoin doesn't know. There's some things that they need human help.
You always say that. Yes.
Yep.
So this is where DAOs come involved. DAOs are basically governments that control software.
Okay.
Okay.
And DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization.
Yes.
It's called autonomous because the software is running all the time. And today we're in a world that's like a whole new like technological feat where the software is running on the internet, like not even on servers. It's running on many other people's computers, people that are giving up their computing space. So now there aren't even web servers to shut down, right? Or in other words, if you're a company, you don't have to worry about upholding a web server. You can just put it out there on the blockchain and then it runs whether you like it or not. So this software is always running, has 100% uptime. It never goes down. It doesn't even need human beings to maintain it.
Right.
It just needs human beings to be a part of it.
Yep.
So a DAO is a government that tells the software, hey, this is what we want you to do.
Okay. And with Genius, with the Genius AI, it's going to be managed, not managed. It's going to be, it's set up in such a way that once the AI, it actually will work to it will work in the economy. It has no conscience, it has no favorites. It just works on data, correct? And that data is what is going to be able to control, to make sure this is a part of the conversation I really want you to explain, because it is so different with every other token on the market, where once their price has been reached, because of this AI and the technology, it's going to be in such a way that price will not fall. So people don't have to worry that, in 2 years' time, they're going to lose what they have, like when the house prices fell. or when the stock market crashed, or
But when you say prices will
the
not
price of
fall,
the price of the whatever they have bought,
yeah,
of their mining or what they have bought
right.
in the Genie token, right?
But like,
Is that a sensible question? Kind
Well,
of.
I'm over here putting it more together. I understand like the mystery. Let me see if I can form the question
Okay.
with a statement and a question. It's like Genius is this system that is coming up, or metaphor time. Bitcoin was a system that came up and said, "Hey, I can do money and you can work with me instead of using the Federal
Okay.
Reserve or the Bank of Canada, the Reserve of Canada." I don't know what it's called. What is it called?
The Federal Reserve. What?
What is the for Canada? What is
The Bank
the
of Canada.
Oh, the Central Bank of
yeah, Central
Canada.
Bank of Canada. Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Gary. And thank you all too. So Bitcoin like came out and said, "Hey guys, you don't have to do business with the Federal Reserve or the Central Bank of Canada anymore to transact with each other. You can now use this Bitcoin business, this Bitcoin network." And most people didn't get it. We're like, "No." And this will be better for you. That's what Bitcoin said. And it'll be better for you. Well, Genius is coming around saying, "Hey, world economy out there, economy of Iran, economy of Canada, economy of the United States, economy of China. All of you regulators who are like working day and night to regulate the economy, you don't have to do that anymore. I'm a system that will regulate your markets and your economy for you automatically." So that's what Genius came around and said. I mean, it didn't really say it. Everybody was still trying to figure out how to describe what it does, right?
Right, right, right.
Even in the Bitcoin days, people were also trying to figure out how to describe what it did because money made no sense. Even though it made sense, it made no sense. So the question is like, well, is this true though? Like, is this really a better thing than what we've all been using for at least a couple hundred years? Does that sound like a question and answer
Yeah.
aligned with what you were saying?
Okay. Yes. I think it does. It does help to streamline where I was going. Right. What's with your involvement with Genius AI? What if you had to pick one thing that you love the most about it? What is that? Tough question, but
Well, for me, yeah. Did you say Watson?
no, I said one
Okay.
question that you love more, that you think it's so
Uh, I
important.
love I love the I love the mechanics because it started with me asking, how on earth do you turn this whole idea that attention is money or value and intentions are value? How do you mathematically turn that into an algorithm?
Right.
I was like, how on earth do you do that? And then that turned into like, oh, you encapsulate the attention and intention into a token. And that token's valuable. And I was like, how on earth does that happen? Right. And then more questions came along. So what I found really interesting, and my favorite thing about Genius is when you have a question, when you're like, how is that possible? And you see the problems with it. The core designers of Genius, they already somehow came up with the answers to that. And it's in the designs. Well, it's in the code. And by the way, well, I don't want to announce anything, but the code will be available for everybody to see. Before the code was available, if you basically wrote an email and said like, yes, I will not disclose the code until a certain date in the future. So that is what I found really interesting, is that it it was somehow able to open up my curiosity and my own questioning of what was value in the first place. It really became philosophical.
Okay.
And over the last like 3, probably almost 4 years, I'm losing count. Um, it has nurtured my curiosity with answers that gave me so much insight into life itself. It's pretty crazy.
I think turn up the volume.
So if you're curious about genius and you dig a little bit, you'll probably find yourself, like myself and like many others, constantly digging more and more for more answers.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
So
with that,
thank you.
we're gonna take a break. We're gonna go to our email, and I'm gonna try and see if I can pull it up here. We've been having some. Well, I have been
Yeah.
having some difficulty with tech-wise today. Folks, as I said earlier at the beginning of this broadcast, it's something totally different from what we normally do. It's a health show, but we always perceive everything to have a direct or indirect effect on your health. Today, we're talking about something that a lot of our listeners don't have a clue what we're talking about because they're hearing it for the very first time. We have decided we are going to be talking about something that is taking the world by storm. That is cryptocurrency and AI.
Right.
They go hand in hand, right? Because you can't have one without the other. And so, because it is something that will, whether we want to accept it or not, will have an effect on our lives, we think that it is important that we talk about it.
Yeah.
But there's one specific part of the AI ecosystem, the cryptocurrency ecosystem, that we thought also would be very important. And it is a phenomenally different, it's new, it's complicated, and it's called genius,
Yes.
right? And that's why we've decided to bring in an expert who has been in the
The
forefront
field.
of it all. He's been in the trenches. He's been around since the early days of Bitcoin to really give us an eye opener, a bird's eye view as to what this thing that's called Genius AI token. What is it all about? It's not out there yet, but we think we should start talking about it because, as I said, AI, cryptocurrency, and everything that's coming in is going to be working together. So that's why our guest today is Robert Genito. And we're gonna get back to our guest, but let me get to the email. And first, right off the bat, here's one from John. John is saying, Fred, we just love your verbiage. Edutainment. That's a genius.
He said genius,
Yeah,
right?
it said genius.
And
And that's what we're talking about.
yeah, genius
Genius.
AI, right?
Genius AI.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have a lot of email today, and
I
I'm
think it's
guessing,
because of the understanding
yeah,
of it.
and like
And
we said, this is something that people need to understand.
yes. And
Right?
plus, we have been doing the health show for so long.
Yeah.
And we've announced a few weeks ago that we're going to be
Making some changes, right?
merging both health and wealth. So this is the first time we're actually bringing on strictly a wealth conversation.
Right.
And Robert, I want to come back to a question because to you, it says when people buy anything of value, they expect to get some kind of yield. People buy Nvidia stocks because they figure it's going to rise and they're going to make some money. The same thing with Microsoft. Anything out there, stocks, that's why people get in the market. When it comes to a token, like this new token that we're introducing, Genius, we hear about yield. How is it that someone who decides, you know what, I have a $50, let me put this and buy some Genie token. I don't know what the heck they're talking about, but if I missed out on Bitcoin, let me put my $50 here. How is it that they're going to make some money if they bought some Genie token? How is yield managed? And if I know you're going to talk about mining and the difference with the mining in Genie and the mining, say, with Bitcoin.
I love this question more now because um, new ways to describe this came up, and I'm so excited about it. But please allow me to do a metaphor and make sure it makes sense. Bitcoin, the early days of Bitcoin, and I was there and I saw that there really needed to be an explanation for people, and Bitcoin made no sense. An investor that I know, he's in his 80s, so we were talking when he was like, he just turned 70, right? And he's like, Rob, when you were first telling me about Bitcoin, you were literally a monkey jumping up and down on the table, banging the table. I had no idea what you were saying, and you looked crazy. But you were so passionate that I was like, you know what? He's probably excited about something valid. And it wasn't until maybe 5 years later it made sense. But Bitcoin only started to make sense to people when someone said, you know what? Bitcoin is digital gold. Bitcoin was not described as digital gold in the beginning. Bitcoin wasn't even described as digital gold a year later or 2 years later. I think it was 3 years later, Bitcoin was starting to be described as digital gold. And then suddenly, generating coins, that's what it was originally called when you were mining. It was called generating coins. And it made no sense to anybody. So suddenly, with this gold metaphor, people would say, and you know what? It's like you're mining for gold. You keep running into a bunch of dirt, and then finally you find pieces of gold. So now, then suddenly, Bitcoin started to make sense to a lot more people. Now, with Genius, on the other hand, Genius, I describe today as an exchange. Genius, well, there's something going on all the time. Now that we have like the Toronto stock market, for example, it has hours when it opens and when it closes. And then when like internet stocks came by, that was a little different. But now when you have blockchain technology that's running 24/7, no need for a server, it's running in like everywhere and it's synced up with each other. What you have is you have 24/7 trading all the time. And and you have all of these different markets selling different things. So if Bitcoin is $80,000 on this market and $100,000 on this other market and $70,000 in this market and 85, there's all these different prices. And because there's all these different prices, there's all of these bots all over the place. All these, well, human beings could do it, but they got smart and made software or bots.
Right.
If you buy lower on one exchange and there's 5,000 exchanges to choose from to see if it's a higher price there and sell there, can you see the amount of transacting going on today in the world is so much more than 120 years ago. It's scary.
It
But
it
so would, mhm,
so sorry to cut you off, Robert.
yeah.
It is we have just a few minutes left on Reality Radio 101. Frederick, you wanted to say?
Yes. What we're going to do, we're going to continue the conversation after we close off with our radio audience because this is a very important conversation and there are lots of things we would like to talk about. So, folks, what we're going to do is this is the first time I'm doing this. We are going to tell our listener, our listening radio audience that we will be transitioning to the live show on YouTube.
Continuing on YouTube.
Right,
now,
we're
yeah.
continuing on YouTube, and if you would like to follow us on YouTube, then you just go to YouTube and type in Liquid Green Health Show, and you see us there on live. So today, we basically we really appreciate your time. Like I'm ad-libbing here. I didn't even write a script as to what to say here too. So to our listeners on Reality Radio 101, we want to thank you for just tuning in. and to being part of today's conversation. As always, we appreciate your time, your presence, and your willingness to listen to something different,
Yes.
right? And
And I know for a lot of people, as you said, the emails,
yeah,
there were some people expressed concern that they didn't really understand what we were talking about.
yeah,
So hopefully we'll have crypto clarity.
yes,
That's what it is. I'm actually, Robert, teaching a course on crypto clarity,
okay,
and I know
okay,
you're doing something the same as well.
yeah,
And see, Ron said questions. He can't ask a question because I don't understand what you're talking about, right?
yeah.
So we're going to have to bring you on again, all right? And hopefully we'll get more
On the
clarity
radio, but we'll continue.
on
Yeah,
YouTube
we'll
right now.
continue on YouTube, Robert. So just give us a few minutes to
Close off on
close
it.
off on the radio part of it, and then we'll continue the conversation. Right now, for those of
Sure.
you who want to continue a little deeper with this conversation, then you can just go to the YouTube channel Liquid Green Health Show, and you'll hear and see us as well. And hopefully you'll get a greater understanding. So
Sure.
if
As
you were
well
able
as
to join us, we'd love to have you continue the journey with us. So until next time, you know,
we will give the information if somebody wanted to learn more about this,
yeah,
which email, not email, but which
yeah,
website they can go and check. And
right.
we will give that out later.
And
All right?
like I've been saying all through the show, this is totally new for us. So until next time, same station, same dial, the same link. Take care of yourself and try to learn as much as possible about the world of crypto and AI. We're continuing the show on YouTube. And as usual, we'd like to say, let's stay healthy, right? On
On
the Liquid Green Health
Reality
Show and
Radio.
on Reality 101.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts Fred and Janet Cox right here on Reality Radio 101.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going
Yeah.
into the lounge now, into the lounge room, and we can talk more in depth as to what this world of crypto and AI and genius is all about.
Right.
And so let's continue.
Yeah,
Thanks for spending the time with us. Right, we're at your pleasure.
Yeah, and you were talking about incentivizing how it's different with Genius AI and the mining, because you were beginning to explain how the mining worked with Bitcoin and what the difference is in terms of how people are going to get yield in Genius AI
Yeah,
or
and the
with
question
Genius
is
token.
like value. You know, this is going to change the entire economy as we know it. The entire economy. Maybe it doesn't, but I really think it can. And that would be really crazy, right? Well, you see, when you think of Bitcoin like a business that competes with the Central Bank of Canada, and really competes with every money printing bank in the world, maybe it makes more sense. Genius, with all of that exchange going on I was telling you about, Genius is a competitor to exchanges. Now, you see, exchanges, how do they make their money?
Is that a question?
Yep. Like, wait a minute, who's
But by
interviewing
charge,
who
but,
here?
yeah, by
The
charging
fees, the
fees, we know they
fees.
charge fees,
Yeah,
right?
they-
And not just one time, because
Really?
every hand that passes, they collect something.
Yeah. And
What's
so it depends
It's
on which exchange you go to exchange. You're shopping around like you would go, whether you go to Walmart or Target or
yeah,
no whatever, to
You're
try and
gonna
get a better rate,
yeah,
right?
you're gonna pay a fee every time. So tell us what's the big difference? What makes Genius AI so different?
Well, he asked the question, so let's see where he's going
Yeah,
with this, right?
well, so that's how the exchanges make their money. They take a piece of it.
Yeah.
They take a piece of the exchange. Just like credit card processors, they take a piece of the exchange. And well, what Genius does is it lists these cryptocurrencies for people to buy and sell
okay,
as an exchange. Now, all of us who've used Genius, we haven't used it in that way. However, all of those bots that are looking for price differences everywhere, they are. Most of Genius users didn't even know or care that they were using Genius token.
Okay.
All they cared about was making that spread.
Mhm.
So Genius is a business that's an exchange that no one owns. And it's an exchange that also needs human beings to tell it, hey, what do I even list here? What tokens are people trading? Because the Genius exchange doesn't really know it. It needs some human help. So with Genius, mining in Genius is different than mining with
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin in the way where the Genius exchange also needs the inventory to sell. Sort of like the Toronto stock market needs the stocks to sell.
Right.
So Genius needs human beings to supply collateral. It all starts with human beings supplying Ethereum or whatever gas token, human beings supplying stable tokens.
Right.
The very birth of like Genius's exchange, just like the very birth of Bitcoin, the very birth of Genius's exchanges, like it tells you, hey, you give me your collateral and I'll give you Genius tokens. There's more good stuff than that, but that's the basics.
Right.
Just like Bitcoin, the Bitcoin network said, hey, you give me your processing power and I'll give you these Bitcoin units. You'll be able to use it to transact. So what happens is, like with Genius, remember, it's an exchange. Every time there's a price difference with any of the stuff that Genius has that it's offering on its exchange, Genius makes a piece of that. So the Genius exchange is making all this revenue from people trading. Well, who owns that revenue?
The treasury.
The Genius token doesn't need to own it. The Genius token is a robot. So Genius gives a revenue share to the token holders.
Right.
So it's kind of like a co-business. You're in business with each other. Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's
does.
very similar, but not the same to mining Bitcoin, where every time the calculation is
done. The miners get paid.
is done, the person who first does the calculation gets a piece of it. But it's done more democratically with the Genius coin. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct. And for anybody wondering about that, yeah, it's like democratically. There's people supplying all this collateral.
Right.
But Genius will say, hey, Genius basically says, look, I'm an exchange business, but I need collateral. I need Genius tokens. I need Bitcoin. I need stable tokens. I need Ethereum. I need this stuff to do this exchange. If you give me some of that, and if you give me at least 90 days, I will give you Genius token, and you can use that Genius token to take whatever collateral you want from me.
Okay.
So if you say, okay, well, what if I give you 1,000 days? I give you some Bitcoin in 1,000 days. Genius says, I'll give you a little bit more of the revenue share than the guy who's giving me Bitcoin in 90 days. Because I can do that. I will accumulate more fees in a longer time period, and those fees compound on each other.
Okay.
Basically, you're using your fees as inventory as well. Your fees in Ethereum, your fees in Bitcoin, those are also on the market to be exchanged.
So it's basically incentive based. If it's in Canada, we have term deposits term deposits. So if you lock your money away for 1 year, you get a certain amount of interest. But if you lock it away for 5 years, then you'll get a higher yield. So I'm figuring it's just like that. If you go with Genius and you mine or invest or put it away for, your 12 years, which is, I think, the largest number of years, that code,
4444. Yeah.
right? Then that is really a big incentive for people to prepare for legacy building. You know, I know a lot of us, Frederick, we did something for our grandson. He was only 9. And I know that in 12 years, he's not going to have to worry about university. Everything goes well with Genius, right? With Genie AI. All right.
Well, here's the crazy thing. Remember, Genius is this business that needs help from human beings.
Right.
And those are the human beings that get the first Genius tokens. Or those are the human beings that got the first Genius tokens, right? Or would be. The crazy thing is, a business like this can effectively, its revenue makes revenue every single day, right? The markets are always trading. So if we have infinity days in the future, this is something that could make infinity revenue. But the crazy thing is, that infinity revenue, or that tons of revenue that keeps growing and growing and growing, that is what actually backs the limited number of Genius tokens. In simplicity, that's how you make a collateral that only increases in value over time. You back the collateral with something real. Or
Okay.
sorry, you back the token with something real. And that something real is growing because it's earning revenue. And you keep, just like Bitcoin, you keep the tokens limited. There's a known limit.
Okay.
And that's what Genius has.
So
So it
how
turns out to be a
does it?
lot, turns out to be a lot simpler than how many of us were explaining it a couple years
Okay.
ago. Genius has its metaphor moment now, where people can actually kind of grasp and understand this.
I know when we first heard about it, it was like, what? I don't know. But we have somebody, I won't call his name on here, but in Toronto, he's helped a lot of us to understand it and to see the value in it and to make sure that, he's so happy when he figures, in 2 years, 3 years' time, people are going to be able to use this as their own bank, basically. Right?
Yeah, I look at it like we'll be able to use it as our own 401k, our own like retirement
Yeah.
account. We can use it for our capital that we're not actively using right now.
So for someone who's looking, based on what I'm hearing about Genius and the ecosystem that it has developed, for someone, let's say an entrepreneur who is working and not contributing to a pension, some kind of a pension fund or something, this is a good vehicle where they can, for much less that you would have to put in to a pension vehicle to get X amount of dollars at the end,
To get a bigger yield.
to get
Yeah. A better yield.
15 or 20 years down the line, you can get the same or much more with less investment with this vehicle.
It's genius.
All right, and that's the genius about Genius. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard the proposed name, Genius. So I had a technology company, and we made the first token for Genius. Turns out the company's name was Genito. And when I first heard that it was called Genius, I thought, oh God, so cheesy.
Genito.
So cheesy. Has nothing to do with my last name.
Right.
But I thought it's so cheesy. I'm like, all right, cool. What would you guys like the abbreviation to be? GNIS or something like that? And they're like, no, GENI, the first 4 letters of it, right? I was like, well, as long as we make it very clear that it doesn't have to do with the Genito company.
Okay.
What's funny is the very beginning of the Genius community used a link shortener called Genius. Are you familiar with that link shortener?
No.
No.
If you go to geni.us,
Mhm.
that's the link shortener. They let you create links to Google Documents, create links to other websites. You know, marketers use these things to shorten their links and to track their links.
Okay.
Well, this company, they banned anybody using this link service to link to Genius token stuff because the company didn't want to be associated with the token. Do you see?
Mm. Mm.
And I own the domain jenny.to. I was like, well, guys, like I can hook that up to Bitly, right? So I've always wanted to like I want to help people, and for a long time, I've just found Genius extremely interesting, and but I was getting with what I was getting at was the original token, the one that didn't do anything. I cringed with the name. I was like, ah, it's like, you know, there's at least 2 other tokens that tried this name, Genius, and there's been many tokens since Genius
Mhm.
that have tried to take that name.
Okay.
But you know what? I gotta admit, like from what I've learned about Genius's code, I've gotten close to one of the designers. Um, it literally is genius. It's
No
fascinating.
pun intended.
Well, Bitcoin, I was obsessively looking for flaws in Bitcoin for 3 to 4 years. And the only other token that I've been that interested in, as I was with Bitcoin, has been Genius.
Right. And what they have said, Robert, what I have learned is that there is only a 2% chance, period, that Bitcoin could ever reach like something, could have like an existential threat to destroy Bitcoin. And here now we have something, I mean, with only 2% chance that Bitcoin can be destroyed or hacked, or, you know, they talk about quantum computers, and that might be the thing that could take out Bitcoin. But
Yeah.
with Genius AI, the universal basic income that is designed in this ecosystem, it's going to also be basically, am I correct in saying it could be unhackable?
Well, you got to look at the design of these things, um, because the whole point of these things is to work as a tool,
Right.
right? And Bitcoin wants to be a tool for store of value today. And you know, Bitcoin actually has 2 very serious flaws. Don't have time to get into it here. I do tell all of my private clients, we meet either weekly or bi-weekly, and we have personal one-on-ones. I share with all of them so they at least know the flaw. Bitcoin has 2 very crippling flaws.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, Roger Ver kind of wrote about it. The reason why we have systems like Ethereum and EOS is because one of Bitcoin's flaws is that it doesn't have its own liquidity. What
Right.
that means is one of Bitcoin's biggest flaws is that it's ultimately going to depend on centralized exchanges for now. And that's a huge flaw with what Bitcoin delivers.
And that's what's happening, isn't it?
But that's not the fatal flaw. The
Okay.
fatal flaw will actually make you not want to touch Bitcoin at all. But I
Don't
still
tell
do
me.
regardless. Well, we definitely don't have time for that one. But
Right, right, right. Hmm.
so Genius, I've looked for a flaw with Genius, and I can't find one. That doesn't mean one doesn't exist. But what I've noticed with myself and at least a dozen other people, probably 2 or 3 dozen other people, is every time we think we've found a flaw, like for example, there's a guy named Shades, and he every time he thought he found the flaw, as he looked at the data of what Genius actually did, he could see that, well, that flaw's been overcome here.
Okay.
You myself, where I've had access to Genius's code, I was able to like really look into it
He's one of
before
your
I had access.
security people, right? The security?
No, totally different. But before I had access to Genius's code, I would look at the math and try to find a flaw. You know, I would build spreadsheets and things. So I'm still looking because if there's a flaw, then it's good to be known. And actually, I have been able to find one flaw with Genius.
Okay.
Most people say Bitcoin depending on an internet society is not a flaw. It's like, oh, we got the internet, it's here to stay. And
Yeah.
there are people who solve that problem, by the way. So even if the
Right.
internet goes away,
Right.
but that's not the kind of flaw I'm going to say with Genius. One thing how I feel is Genius, like you got to ask yourself, what kind of society does it depend on? And Genius depends on a society that wants to profit. All of its mechanics operate themselves because people want to profit. Genius makes revenue from trades because people want to profit off the spread, off the difference between different tokens on the blockchain. So the flaw with Genius is that in a society that doesn't care about profit, nobody will use Genius. Genius doesn't need more users to be more valuable. Genius needs more transactions to become more valuable because transactions is where real revenue is generated.
So the question is, you have all the big ones already, Kraken, Coinbase, Crypto.com, all the exchanges we know of. Do they have anything to be concerned about with Genius? Because basically, isn't that what they already do in terms of
Not fair. You mean that?
arbitrage?
Yeah.
Isn't that I'm just wondering
I wouldn't
Is there
what's
say
the difference?
is there a reason for them to be fearful?
no. You see, when you're an exchange and a new exchange comes up, yeah, if you depend on people doing exchange on your exchange, yes.
Right.
But if you're an exchange and there's a difference in market price and another competitor is open, you don't really care. That gives more reason for people to exchange on your exchange. When you're an exchange, the thing that you're most concerned with is having the inventory to sell. That's your number one worry.
Okay.
I've worked with many exchanges, and you know of all the exchanges I've worked with. I built software for many of them too, and I've talked with them over and over again. And that's the number one concern. The
Okay.
concern is having the liquidity, having the inventory.
Now, the same questions for the banks. Do they have anything to fear with the emergence of Genie?
Um, I'd say,
Be concerned about.
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say the people like, everybody's different. Some people aren't concerned with competition and some people are, right? Like for example, even though AI presents a huge opportunity to everyone,
Yeah.
like if you're a web designer, you're either afraid that AI is going to take your job or you realize it's going to help you do your job way better and way faster.
Right.
You're now able to become more competitive.
Yeah.
So it's always going to depend on the person.
Correct. So
Genius
true.
competes with the jobs of regulators, people who regulate the economies, and they're happy with their power that they have, or maybe they're not happy. Like Jerome Powell, from the Federal Reserve of the United States. A lot of people give him a lot of crap. So sometimes, I wonder if he's going up there and he's like, man, people want to know about quantum easing and all this. Like, why does it have to be me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dang it! Why do I got to go up here and say this? I wonder if he ever thinks that to himself. But something like Genius can if you can take the jobs of regulators, really you can just make their jobs much easier.
Okay.
Regulators are doing these jobs to keep people safe, to keep the economy good instead of it going completely to SHIT. So if there's a tool that can actually change the economy and help it be better, that is a huge opportunity for the first countries that embed it. just like El Salvador and Iran
Yeah.
very much changed. Maybe Iran's an example I shouldn't give, but
I like
but El
it.
Salvador completely turned around its country
That's their currency
by
of
making,
choice. Yes.
yes, by making that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, Robert, I think
Yeah.
we have spent a lot of time with you, and I know you're a busy, busy, busy guy, and so we don't want to manipulate your time. Is there anything else you think we should talk about before we leave, perhaps in another 5 minutes?
Well, sure. If people are anybody listening who, is interested in like talking with someone privately about these things and really getting their mind wrapped around it, really seeing how it works for them. Uh, it's something that I've done for a long time, but I've never been public about it. I'd never been like, hey guys, like, let's talk. So I have my website, robertgenito.com, coming up pretty soon. I had it up, had to take it down. And also I'm on the school network, skool.com.
School.com. I'm on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you would, yes, and thank you. If you would put a link below in the YouTube, I'd really appreciate it. My goal is to help people see how this is useful to them,
Okay.
whether it's Bitcoin, Genius, or blockchain technology in general. And I'll tell you, the things that I'm doing for my clients, they are blown away by it. They cannot believe that it even exists. I
Okay.
often hear, Robert, if you didn't just show me that in front of me, I would have said, you're full of it. It's impossible.
Give us an
Like,
example. Ha ha ha.
sure.
I was joking.
And
We're gonna have to
I'm
sign
doing
up
this
to get
example
it.
next week.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
the first thing where somebody like said that to me and I had no idea who they were,
Right.
I was giving an example. I said, hey, we're going to talk about some blockchain stuff here. It was like, I was talking with like 20 people. It's pretty small, nice knit group.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to show you some technology because you all want to hear about blockchain, but it was about seeing what's actually like how to actually use it.
Okay.
I said, I'm going to take some Bitcoin. I'm going to show you all of this. I'm going to take some Bitcoin. I'm going to borrow dollars from it, and I'm going to send it to my Venmo, all without a single company except Venmo, because Venmo is the one company. I'm going to do all of that in front of you and explain what I'm doing. It brought up a lot of questions. It always does when I give talks about this. Like, how can you, without any company, put up Bitcoin, let's say one Bitcoin, let's say like 80 grand worth of Bitcoin, and then you borrow 40 grand from it, and then you get it to your bank or you get it to your Venmo, if Venmo will allow you
Yeah.
to load that much.
We don't have that in Canada.
How do you do that without another company? And what blows their mind is when I say, guys, this technology has been available for 7 years. You could have been doing this 7 years ago. They're like, what? So that's what I do with my clients. I show them they have places they want to be in the crypto world, or they're just curious, and I help them arrive there safely.
Okay.
And I constantly blow their mind with what new things we can do with money that we couldn't do 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Couldn't
And
do 10 years ago even.
True. Sorry, go ahead.
How can we facilitate promoting Genius in a much more effective way? Like we have just this week, as a matter of fact, decided that we will go through with the
Virginia.
live portion of our radio show,
Okay.
right? The audience that we have in our radio show, they're more into health than what we're talking about. And we could see from the email that we got today,
Yes.
right? We get a lot of email, but nothing,
Usually we have at least 30 emails.
yeah, nothing
They were
compares.
quiet.
Right. So, using the platform that we've just created, we would like to really have conversations with you
Right.
on a more regular basis, once a week or whatever. I mean, you're doing it at your end. We can do it at our end as well. It's just getting the word out and
Yes.
and talking about, what we've just spoken about today,
Right.
right? If you're open
Can
to
I-
that, we can do that. Separate from the
Health
radio show.
Yeah. I
Well,
think
what
so.
I'd love to share with you, big time, is Bitcoin is ultimately like, when it comes to health, I very unexpectedly found out and learned and did a lot with health from Bitcoin, very unexpectedly. You'll have to ask me that another time. But what I
Right.
found ultimately is that your health is so much more rooted in emotions than most people
No,
Yes.
believe,
it absolutely.
right?
Yes.
You tell people that are very health conscious this, and they're like, "Oh yeah." Yet the
It's true.
last 8 years of my life, I think I mentioned this, the last 8 years have been entirely focused on healing as a result of emotions. I'll go ahead and show you pictures of me 3 years ago, and you'll say, "Holy beep, hey man,
It's okay. We're now on YouTube.
you
That's
look disgusting back then. What happened?"
okay.
And then you'll see pictures from me like 10 years ago, and you'll be like, you look younger, but you also don't look good at
Yeah.
all. I'm not saying I look great now. I'm saying compared to 3 years ago,
Yeah.
compared to
Yeah.
5, compared to 10, I look a lot better today, or at least people tell me.
Look at all the
But
fruit you've eaten. For 1 hour, you've been eating fruit.
this whole bowl.
Oh no, you're kidding me.
Some
Wow.
some people say they're gonna go get a bowl and they get excited. Me, the bowl means fruit.
But that's too much sugar. It's natural sugar, but isn't that too much sugar?
Well, look at it this way:
Sugar that
sugar,
doesn't spike your insulin.
Right. Oh.
sugar is a very broad subject.
Yes, it
The
is.
simplest sugars versus the not so simple sugars have
Yeah,
a
that's a
very
whole show in
wildly
itself.
different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Okay, wonderful. All right. So, Robert, so good. We
Yeah,
will.
I think this is something that we should follow through. When we were
Okay.
on YouTube way back, we had a lot of
Hmm.
followers, but we weren't savvy with it, right? And as a result, our
We
followers
we
just
stopped doing YouTube and
it
just
I
did the
flattened.
radio
Yeah.
Yeah.
for health.
I would love to help you all with that. I might
Okay.
not seem like somebody that can help with it because I don't have the hugest following. It's not where I focus. I like one-on-one conversations.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
also like to research.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
It's
Okay.
been a pleasure, Robert. This is what we want to do. This is what we will continue to do. And, unfortunately, we've come to the end of a wonderful conversation, a very not another rather powerful conversation here at the Liquid Green Health Show. Today, we stepped into a space that for many can feel uncertain, even intimidating, but hopefully now more, a little more clear than 10 minutes, 10 hours, 5 days ago. Because at the end of the day, this was never just about cryptocurrency. It was never just about artificial
AI.
intelligence either. It's about awareness, it's about understanding, and it's about making informed decisions, not from fear, but from clarity. Like
Understanding.
your course, it's all about clarity.
Yeah.
And because true wealth
Beautiful.
is not just, in your bank, what's in your bank account, it's the peace of mind that you acquire from it. It's your ability to think clearly, and it's your confidence to navigate this changing world that we are experiencing. So, just like the physical health, your financial awareness needs attention, it needs balance, and of course, it needs care. So, whether you choose to explore this space further or simply walk away better informed, you're already in a stronger position than you ever were before. And so, we want to thank our guest, Robert Genito, for helping us break down this, what used to be confusing. I hope it's no longer confusing to you.
Right.
Break it down in a way that makes sense, a way that keeps it real. And to you, our listeners and viewers, we want to thank you for spending your time with us, for thinking with us, and for growing with us. So until next Sunday,
Yes.
or
We'll
whenever we
work it
choose
out.
to come back, we're going
Yeah.
to work out a day and a
Okay.
time. We want to thank you. Have a good day. Thank you very much, Robert.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Robert. Namaste.
See you all. Bye bye. Namaste.
Thanks.